that, boss. I can't tell you that. That is trade secret. Hey, big pest control have to keep ahead of the competition, you know. But I'm supposed to know that, boss. Yeah.
This Honourable House now resumes its sitting. Call of the roll.
Mr. Lloyd Smith, Mr. Paulwell, Mrs. Simpson Miller, Dr. Phillips, Dr. Davies, Mr. Pickersgill, Mr. Bunting, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Clark, Mr. George Hilton, Dr. Ferguson, Mr. R. Scott, Reverend Thwaites, Dr. McNeil, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Daly, Dr. Guy, Mrs. Nita Headley, Mr. Atkinson, Mr. Luther Buchanan, Dr. Ferguson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Azan, Mr. Hales, Mr. Fagan, Mrs. Fox Abraham, Mr. Crawford, Mr. Brown, Mr. Bartlett, Dr. Baugh, Dr. Bloomfield, Mr. Hugh Buchanan, Mr. Paul Buchanan, Dr. Campbell, Dr. Chan, Mr. Charles, Mr. Chuck, Miss Daly, Mrs. Dalrymple Philibert, Dr. Duncan, Miss Grange, Dr. Green, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Henry, Mr. Holness, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Andre Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Mayer, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Parchment, Mr. Michael Phillips, Mrs. Nita Headley, Mr. Price, Mr. Robertson, Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Silvera, Mr. Derek Smith, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Walford, Mr. Warmington, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Charles,
Statements by ministers. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: Ministry Papers number 45, an annual report and audited financial statements of the Pesticides Control Authority. Number 46, an annual report of the Development Bank of Jamaica Limited for the financial year ended March 31, 2013. Number 47, an annual report of the Private Security Regulation Authority for the period April 1, 2010 to March 31, 2011.
Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Warmington.
2 weeks ago, during the Finance Committee meeting, I asked question in relationship to the budget for the Leader of Opposition's office. And the minister then gave a response which turned out not to be totally correct, where he was somewhat misled by those who advised him. But at the time when I asked the question of the reduction of $2 million in the salary for the Leader Opposition office and the reduction of $700,000 for goods and services, at the time there were no stationery in that office. And the other thing is that at that time when I asked the question, the telephone to the Leader of the Opposition office was disconnected and is still disconnected. What I want to ask is why this happened, because while the current Prime Minister occupied that office, this type of disrespect was never shown to that office. And I'm saying that this type of spitefulness, pettiness, vindictiveness,
Mr. Warmington, no, you know better than that, man. You're accusing people of...
Well, what I'm saying, that this type of behavior should must stop. This should never happen. Should never happen. This is disrespectful, and this is at the lowest level that we can descend in such regard. It is still disconnected. 2 weeks now the telephone in that office, the bill is not paid. It is totally disrespectful. And as I said before, while the current Prime Minister occupied that office, with this type of disrespect was never shown. And an end must be put to this type of disrespect that's been shown to that office.
Okay, sir, thank you. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I recall that it's a matter under the heading of Parliament, is it not? All right, and so as the House Leader, I undertake to sort it out. Right?
Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sittings of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I now move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Amendment Act 2014.
A bill shortly entitled the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Amendment Act 2014 read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of second reading.
Public business.
Mr. Speaker, we intend to continue the debates which were started last Thursday. This afternoon, the Opposition Spokesperson and Finance Member of Parliament for North East Manchester will make his contribution.
Mr. Shaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the occasion of this budget debate, let me first of all thank you for your continued even-handed leadership in this House, and
let me acknowledge the presence of my dear wife, who is along with members of my constituency. Well, you know that you have to keep babysitting, who are here, and including councillors and my councillor caretaker, who, Mr. Speaker, as you know, this is my 21st year of service as an MP. And I know that it is also your 21st year of service as Member of Parliament. And I want to I want to also express my appreciation to my colleagues in all of the support that they have given to me, and in particular, I have to say to my leader and leader of the opposition, and to thank him for taking a chance with me one more time. Mr. Speaker, in my presentation today, I intend to give a brief overview of what I consider to be the state of the nation. I will then look at the expenditure budget and some critical matters that have to do with that expenditure budget. I will take a look at the tax package that has been proposed by the Honourable Minister of Finance, and then to have a brief discussion on the macroeconomic program of the government with the International Monetary Fund, and to discuss, accept the invitation of the Minister of Finance to talk about exchange rate and the question of devaluation, and to discuss the issue of debt briefly before I end my presentation with some prescriptions for economic growth. So that is, Mr. Speaker, by way of the framework for my presentation. Mr. Speaker, a British Army officer was assigned the arduous task of visiting a battlefield to check on reports of heavy troop losses. Upon his return, he reported to his superiors, "Gentlemen, I'm afraid the situation is so grave," because he has found a lot of carnage. He says, "I'm afraid the situation is so grave that it is virtually impossible for me to exaggerate, but I will try." Today, in reporting to this Parliament on the state of the nation, there is absolutely no need for me, Mr. Speaker, to exaggerate. Honourable members can be assured that whatever observations I make will be well grounded in the incontrovertible truth. It will be supported by facts, by real-life, everyday experiences. Listeners will be obliged to receive the information either in loud or quiet agreement. Any denial to the contrary will be a contrivance, Mr. Speaker, a fabrication by persons either in self-denial or with their heads buried in the proverbial sand of political expediency. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, what is the state of the nation today? As I participate in this budget debate today, the question must be asked, what is the true state of the nation? Because when I listened last week, Thursday, I thought the only thing that was left to flow was milk and honey. Over the past 2 years and 4 months of the administration of this government, the condition of the lives of the citizens of Jamaica has sharply worsened. The overall annual unemployment rate is at a 12-year high at 15.3% for 2013. Unemployment among young people aged 20 to 24 is 35.2%, but among young women at the same age, it is even higher at 44.1% at October 2013, Mr. Speaker.
Oh boy.
The cost of living has sharply increased due to a 27% devaluation of the Jamaican dollar against the United States dollar, moving from $86.60 to $1 at the end of 2011 to $109.96, easy to just round it off at $110 now, to $1. The price of chicken, back and basic foods, Mr. Speaker, has flown to unreachable heights, while oxtail and steak are now delicacies no longer promised in the public square. And it was not promised by us. The fact is, by even the most conservative assessment of prices of basic foods, one will find that the prices have increased, Mr. Speaker, at least twice the rate of the official inflation. This is certainly not balancing the people's lives, as is the passion of the Honourable Prime Minister. The cost of electricity continues to increase apace, closing down some businesses, putting more people out of work, causing more disconnections of service, sending families to steal electricity or resort to the home sweet home lamp. In March, our light bills have been further increased by another 10%, one lick. And as we speak, the JPS has applied to the OUR for a 21% increase, and even as they promise a 2 to 8% reduction to large industrial users in return, small businesses, Mr. Speaker, will be called upon to pay 15% more for electricity, further eroding their fragile competitiveness. And even as our manufacturers and exporters put up a brave face and went to the national arena to display their goods, many of them worried privately, and not so privately, that they just don't know how much longer they can survive in business with a sliding dollar, increased cost of electricity, declining consumer demand due to the severe contraction in the economy, and its negative impact on people's purchasing power. Mr. Speaker, we must look at the statistics. The volume of total cargo at our ports is at a 5-year low at 22 million tons per year. When the JLP left office, our ports were handling some 30+ million tons per year. At the end of 2013, volumes were 25% lower. That is not progress, Minister. The Economic and Social Survey of 2013 showed that the household poverty rate increased. Household poverty, Mr. Speaker, has increased by 2%, moving from 12.4% in 2010 to 14.4% in 2012. My guess is that it's even worse if you factor in the figures for 2013. Jamaica has slipped 7 places, Mr. Speaker, on the United Nations Development Programme Human Development Index, from 79th place to 86th place, showing or worsening poverty. Mr. Speaker, you can feel the poverty. You can see it as you travel the length and breadth of Jamaica. It is palpable. One social scientist has recently declared that 1.1 million Jamaicans are below the poverty line. 1.1 million people. Meanwhile, it's not the first time we've heard that figure. The World Bank has used that figure before, referring to how marginal we are. Meanwhile, there has been no publication of the Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions for over 3 years. Mr. Speaker, the feeling of increasing poverty is becoming quite pervasive and is amplified in a recent statement by the Reverend Lenworth Anglin, President of the Jamaica Umbrella Group of Churches, representing 99% of the Christian community in Jamaica. Here is what he had to say. I quote, "Basically, people are fearful. People are suffering financially, and the cost of living is too high. People are not earning, and then there is a loss of jobs. The unemployment rate is just too high, and so there is a general suffering around which is evident." He continued, "The minister is trying to appease our minds, but we are feeling it on the ground." He then said, quote, "I have never seen so many needy people in all of my life, and they are coming to the church." That is the president of the umbrella group of churches. Mr. Speaker, the fact is that the rich are no longer getting richer. The middle class is rapidly becoming the lower class. The lower class is becoming the poor. And the poor is no longer getting poorer. They are getting poorer. Honorable Prime Minister, I'm sorry, but you're not balancing the people's lives. Vital drugs needed by people who can't afford it are increasingly unavailable at public hospitals. One patient recently came to me with one item unfilled from 3 prescriptions given at the hospital. It turned out, Mr. Speaker, to be by far the most expensive of the 3 items of drugs vitally needed. Additionally, an increased number of patients with chronic illnesses like renal failure and cancer await the mercy of the government, the IMF, and the expenditure. And even as we claim to meet our expenditure targets to pass another IMF test, vital services such as repairs and sanitation in schools are cut. Help for the disabled is cut. Trucking of water and new supply systems are cut, while raw sewage runs where we sell food in downtown Kingston, and where our people live and children play in the inner cities, including Tall's Pen in Spanish Town. Thousands of people are keeping their children out of school, some for days, others for weeks, because they can't afford the lunch and the transport money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, despite the best efforts of the PATH program, parents are having it very, very tough out there. Madam Prime Minister, we are not balancing our people's lives. All across the land, Jamaicans are stressed out. The worker is stressed out to make ends meet. The businessman is stressed to try and cope with the hostile business climate. The transport operator is stressed out as he is called upon to find an extra $750,000 for a license and to duke his bus while his income stream is declining. Many people across Jamaica are now buying bread by the half, the quarter, or the slice. They are buying 1 egg. Mr. Speaker, many people Mr. Speaker, I don't know what about that excited some people like that. But let me say it again. Many people across Jamaica are now buying bread by the half, by the quarter, and by the slice. Some people are buying egg, Mr. Speaker, by the one. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, go downtown, they're buying egg by the one, they're buying a frankfurter by the one, and they're buying a squeeze of toothpaste by the one. Mr. Speaker, due to the, you know, Mr. Speaker, some people don't believe about the squeeze of toothpaste, you know. But some time ago it used to be beg your squeeze of toothpaste, no? Now it is not beg your squeeze, now it is sell me a squeeze of toothpaste. Due to the gross mismanagement.
Mr. Buchanan, you're a minister. You're a minister of state.
Mr. Speaker, due to the gross mismanagement of this government, those of us who have jobs are stressed out to make ends meet between the food, the light bill, the transportation, school, the cost of daily survival. We are between the rock and some very hard places. This government is not balancing people's lives. One man told me at the OUR consultation in Mandeville last week at the JPS application for a rate increase that the light bill, he said to the entire audience, the light bill now is costing more than the food bill.
And you are right, Lee.
And it is not the churches alone people turn to, Mr. Speaker. Let's be totally honest. Members of Parliament, councillors, and the caretakers, the representatives of the people, are stressed out trying to cope with the ever-increasing cry from the needy for assistance in our constituencies. I dare anyone to deny that. Mr. Speaker, it goes beyond that. For micro and small enterprises, the numbers are not thriving. And I take note of the initiatives announced by the Minister last week. Every community I come up with. But small businesses, Minister, are not thriving. There were 267 fewer small businesses operating in Jamaica at the end of December 2013 than when the Jamaica left office. Sales for the sector, according to the Planning Institute of Jamaica, have dropped by 15.4%, or some $9 billion since the JLP left office. That is not progress, Minister. That is moving in the wrong direction. Imports, Mr. Speaker, at 44.1% of GDP at the end of 2013 is higher than where it was at the end of 2012 at 42.9%, despite the massive devaluation in the currency. That is moving in the wrong direction. Exports at 11.1% of GDP at the end of 2013 is lower than where it was at the end of 2012 at 11.7%. That's moving in the wrong direction. If you drill down into exports in the manufacturing sector, you will see, Mr. Speaker, an 18% decline in 2013 when compared with 2012 across traditional and non-traditional exports, putting some 5,000 people out of work. Mr. Speaker, this is a sector that employs approximately 2 times more males than females. Imagine the impact on households from the job losses. And inflation at 9.5% at the end of 2013 is higher than where the JLP left it at the end of 2011. That's moving in the wrong direction. Net international reserves at $1.3 billion. And it is interesting how the minister, when he speaks, very selective in how he does benchmarking. He decides when he benchmarks to 2011 and when he benchmarks otherwise. Because last week he said that NIR is now at $1.3 billion, up from $800 million last year. But on a broader perspective, at the end of March 2014, the NIR is $700 million less than the approximately $2 billion that the JLP handed to the PNP at December 2011. Moving in the wrong direction. Mr. Speaker, oh, you come? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the Jamaica Stock Exchange has lost approximately 21% of its market value since the JLP left office. That is moving in the wrong direction. Ask the question boldly of most Jamaicans, except perhaps the array of consultants to this government. Are you better off today than 2 years and 4 months ago?
Yes.
You will get a resounding no. Has this government kept its solemn promise to balance your lives while they balance the books?
No.
You will get another big no. Mr. Speaker, the government has passed IMF tests, and that is good, but they have dismally failed the test of effective governance, and they have failed miserably the people's test. They have failed the supermarket test. They have failed the test of ensuring all our children are in school on a consistent basis. They have failed the small and medium enterprises test. They have failed the import test. They have failed the export test. They have failed the inflation test, the NIR test, and the stock market test. They have failed the test to balance the lives of our people. Mr. Speaker, this is the background against which I address this honourable House today. I now turn to the budget, the matter at hand. Mr. Speaker, on the expenditure side of the budget, the Minister has put forward a budget totaling $539.4 billion. That's in the book. We know about the additional that is related to the appropriations in it. And this is almost 19% of which of this is debt that needs to be repaid this fiscal year, and which the Minister has to ask the holders to roll over or the multilaterals to lend new money to take out that debt. We will return to the matter of the debt because there are a few things I want to say on that. I first want to focus on the recurrent and capital expenditure. The $438 billion segment of the budget, Mr. Speaker, it is the part of the budget that the hard-earned tax dollars of the people of Jamaica support. As such, Mr. Speaker, I believe the government of the day owes it to the taxpayers. In fact, it should be considered the government's sacred duty to report honestly, accurately, and completely to the people of Jamaica. And so, Mr. Speaker, as I reflect on the sacrifices of the Jamaican taxpayers, I'm saddened by the inaccurate picture that this budget presents of the state of affairs of the government and the country, and take this opportunity to call for greater transparency so all Jamaicans can understand, even parliamentarians can better understand, to have a clearer picture of the financial state of the nation. One such area that has been utterly abused in terms of lack of transparency is the question of arrears in payment. Mr. Speaker, the expenditure budget is increasingly put together while ignoring the build-up of arrears or late payments, which keeps worsening every year. I asked the government to tell me how much are the arrears, and they said $25.51 billion, an extremely high figure which still does not include withholding tax on interest owed. Here are the estimates for the arrears. We have withholding tax on interest of $20.46 billion. Statutory deductions to statutory bodies. The National Housing Trust. The National Insurance Scheme. We have also the Jamaica Public Service Company, some $2.9 billion at the Jamaica Public Service Company. It is not clear to me, however, whether all of that information is contained in a report that I did not receive until very late last night, is when I finally got the report, Mr. Speaker, and I can report to you now that the detailed information by ministry, by department, and by agencies finally came to me just literally a few hours ago. With a nominal increase of 30, the point I want to make first of all is that when you add up these items that I mentioned a while ago, $15 billion for statutory deductions, $20.46 billion for withholding tax on interest, and the total of the withholding taxes, the total of the arrears that has been presented to us is $25.51 billion. You add all of that together with JPS and you come up with a total of $47.87 billion that is outstanding in terms of arrears. With a nominal increase of $39 billion in this budget when compared with last year, and most of that is really for interest payments and wage settlements. It is clear that the government has no plan to extricate itself from the stranglehold of persistent and growing arrears for a range of things, as I have already enumerated. In addition to the outstanding liabilities for withholding tax on interest, totaling $20.46 billion, there are $25.51 billion of arrears, most of which are in chronic arrears of $21.38 billion, in excess of 90 days, totaling a whopping $47.87 billion. While the NHT and the NIS arrears of $15.85 billion and $1.15 billion respectively are listed as part of these arrears, it is not clear whether arrears to the JPS for the street lights of $2.9 billion are included. It's not in this list, that's for sure. How credible does this make this budget with the minister bragging that he has met all his IMF targets? And why is the IMF turning a blind eye to this ever-worsening situation? This failure, which is now in many cases in excess of 365 days, Mr. Speaker, is wreaking havoc on the ability of many small businesses to be able to afford to remain as suppliers to the government. The JDF and the Ministry of Health are big-time culprits in this regard in terms of paying their arrears, persistent arrears in excess of 90 days. Indeed, many companies are laying off workers, closing down their businesses, cutting supplies to government, even as the MDAs simply open new lines of credit with other suppliers to rack up some more payables. These large and ever-increasing levels of arrears left unattended calls into sharp question the very credibility of this budget, as the arrears are not included in the budget, not even reported as a footnote in the budget. And I had to be like pulling teeth to get this information. Beyond the issue of the outstanding payments is also the question of the accuracy of the information being provided. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, there seems to be a stubborn reluctance to come clean and transparent on the arrears. Where are the details? Why is it such a reluctance to provide it in all its dimensions? Because even as I have this now, I don't see the NIS arrears on it. It's not on this list. And I don't see the Jamaica Public Service streetlight arrears, which are almost $3 billion. That's just for street lights. Then there's another $1 or $2 billion for electricity owed by MDAs in the system. I don't know if that roughly $5 billion is included in this document. So, we're going to have to use Parliament to continue to prosecute this case, because we must get the truth. And we must get all of the truth and nothing but the truth. Mr. Speaker, if we were to add the JPS and the NIS and others that I feel are missing from here, we'd be looking at a total of about $52 billion. $52 billion of arrears, for which the budget makes no mention. There is no accounting in the budget to pay any of this.
Members' time for speaking has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the member's time be extended sufficient to allow him to complete his presentation.
The question is for the member's time to be extended sufficiently for him to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it. Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Speaker, let me give some clarity. I thank the honourable members for the extension. Let me give some clarity as to why we need the details across ministries, departments and agencies. We have to bring it, we have to micromanage it, we have to bring it down to the nitty-gritty, because people's lives are affected. As the opposition spokesman on finance, Honourable Prime Minister, I can tell you, I drive into a parking lot, going about my business, and people want to tell me about the problems they're having getting their pay from the government. And some of them are in real, genuine need. Some of them cry. They literally cry. They cry. Because their very livelihood and lives are being affected. It's not a joke business. Not a joke business. Okay? And I feel it for them, and that's why I bring it to the Parliament. I feel it for them. It's a serious thing. Not a joke business. In an example I give now, Mr. Speaker, there are people working with the Southeast Regional Health Authority, one of the senior culprits in this problem of arrears. I'm not pointing fingers anywhere. Who have not seen, some workers, Mr. Speaker, very serious, have not seen their deductions for insurance and loans that are due to be paid to insurance companies, credit unions, and other financial institutions. This is a serious business, because statutory deductions are one thing, and that's bad if it's not being paid over, but I think the government, starting from some time ago, has started to deduct the statutory deductions at source. But what about these deductions now to assist our workers in their normal, routine, day-to-day activities? The ministry deducts the money, or the department deducts the money, and don't pass it on. So from October of last year, a number of persons in this region, Minister, have not gotten these payments made. Now, some of them have said, the institutions have called to say they have not received payments since last October. So this is almost 6 months arrears for those people, placing their credit and their welfare on the line. Can you imagine if your insurance premium is among those not paid? Another example are reports that some members of the medical profession only received part payment of their salaries in March, last month. Part payment of their salaries. Yes. And in respect of gratuities that are due for over 1 year now, have not been paid at all. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the report just received reveals that next to large sums owed for withholding tax on interest and statutory deductions to the National Housing Trust, the next largest delinquent is the Ministry of Health, with a whopping arrears build-up of $6.731 billion, with $4.472 billion in chronic arrears in excess of 90 days. Now you can imagine what is happening to the suppliers across the island who are providing goods and services to this department. That is just one example of what is happening. When the administration, this government, stuffs the bills into the arrears bag, pretends that it is living within its means and brag about it too, and gives the IMF the assurance that the arrears are not getting any worse. So, Mr. Speaker, the Minister said last week the amount of arrears over 90 days, and I don't want to to be misleading, but I thought I heard him say, as of this same time last year, the chronic arrears was $21.38 billion. Well, the report I just got from the Financial Secretary says that this year, the chronic arrears is still $21.38 billion. The figure not moving at all, it just lie down. The figure is a chronic. What an amazing coincidence, the same figure. The same figure. So, when the minister says, quote, by living within our means, the country maintained a primary surplus of 7.5%, but was also able to achieve a fiscal surplus. Our revenues covered all recurrent expenditure, including interest costs. No, Minister. Revenues do not cover all recurrent expenditure. Not when this government has arrears of $47.87 billion or possibly more, possibly $51.92 billion and counting, owing to businesses and individuals. By your own figures, $4.1 billion occurred in the last 30 days, not the last 90 days. Well, yes, in the last 90 days. In the last 90 days. Mr. Speaker, I must remind this Honourable House that under the JLP government, we started a payment plan in respect of withholding taxes now, Minister. We started a payment plan to pay down the $20 billion, because that was the figure, when I came in, that was the figure that was there, $20 billion. And we started a payment plan to pay down the $20 billion withholding tax on interest liability, and brought the arrears we inherited down on the time of my departing from that office. It was down to about $15 billion. $15 billion, we were paying it down. And while we were paying it down, we were paying current obligations on time. Now, the government has apparently scuttled that plan, and the arrears are now back to $20.46 billion. Minister, let us take this one in hand. I want to turn briefly to the issue, a concern I have about how the budget is constructed, Minister. It has to do with the transparency in the budget, and it has to do with how we are able to competently evaluate the budget and able to compare the estimates one period to the next. Let's take the Ministry of Health. Because when the budget is tabled, the media is out there and everybody say, oh, this department get cut and this ministry get cut and all cut left, right and center, right? What is the truth? Because we need the information when you're analyzing the thing. At the Ministry of Health, let's look at the budget that was presented in this budget. Approved estimates 2013-14, $32 billion. Revised estimate, $36.3 billion. Estimates for 2014-15, $34.7 billion. So, Prime Minister, this gives the impression that the budget for the Ministry of Health is down almost $2 billion. But that is misleading, because the budget that is presented for the Ministry of Health does not include the $2.33 billion for reclassification. Government knows it. It does include roughly $1.5 billion for arrears in wages, the 7%. The government knows it. And the second year of another one-off payment of $25,000. The government knows it. That amount is approximately $700 million. So when you add all of these, Mr. Speaker, the budget for the Ministry of Health is a total of $39.3 billion, not $34.7 billion. Which will not be reflected until this tabling of the supplementary estimates when it comes. The same misleading information applies to the Ministry of Education, because we can jump up, and it might be politically good to jump up and say, my God, the Ministry of Education budget has been cut. Look how much cut it cut by. But, Minister, when you add back the money, when you add back the money from, see, you are distracted, but when you add back the money from the 7% that is now in contingency and one-off payments of the $25,000, you will find that certainly the compensation side of the budget is in fact likely to be more than last year and not less. So it is time, I believe, high time to present the budget in a way that gives an accurate presentation to the people of Jamaica, to the journalists, to Parliament, on how the actual estimates are. If you already know this information, I can't see any good reason why it should be clumped up into an amount called contingency. You have the information already, put it into the budget. And let us be able that, yes, whatever, you're better at cricket than most other things. I mean, anyway, that, yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, I turn now to interest expense. Interest expense, Mr. Speaker, took a rather large jump in the budget this fiscal year to $132.7 billion, up from $109.9 billion last year. That is an increase of some $23 billion. If the government were paying down the debt like the minister said, you would expect the interest expense to decline, or certainly not to be up by $23 billion. A worse situation this fiscal year, and after having done a second debt exchange to bring the interest cost down. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, is that the nominal stock of debt is up, not down. The government closed the fiscal year 13-14 with a central government debt of $1.946 trillion, up from $1.812 trillion the previous year. That is $134 roughly more. I fully understand the importance of using the debt to GDP ratio rather than the nominal stock of debt, and I'll get to that in a moment. But what I want Jamaicans to understand is that the thing called exchange rate, it is wreaking havoc with the interest cost in the budget. The minister did not touch that in his speech last week. What we therefore must understand is the umbilical linkage between the increase in the debt stock, not from borrowing only, but from devaluation, which then causes higher interest costs, which requires more taxation and other measures, as we are experiencing now with the additional $23 billion of interest costs. Let everyone understand, Mr. Speaker, when 47.2% of the total stock of debt is in foreign currency, the exchange rate matters. When 21.5% of the local debt is indexed to United States dollars, the exchange rate matters. And so we can't just willy-nilly continue to talk about devaluation. There are real fundamental costs to devaluation. And here is a big example in the budget. It's not just a cost to the man on the street. It's a cost on the fiscal accounts that eventually reaches its way back to the man on the street, the taxpayer of Jamaica. We have to find that money. And what is even sadder is that the benefits of the lower interest costs from the national debt exchange are gone. Those benefits have already been wiped out by the continued devaluation of the currency. What was the sacrifice all about, Mr. Speaker? Truth is, when a country is as highly indebted as Jamaica is with massive amounts of foreign debt, the best strategy is a stable currency. If the country had none or very little foreign exchange debt, and its singular focus was on stimulating exports, then maybe, only maybe, I would concede the devaluation argument. I will return to the exchange rate discussion because there are few things as important to discussing the way forward right now as the question of the exchange rate. And I'm going to spend time on it today. No. Especially you. I will spend plenty of time explaining it to you. Yes. No. Mr. Speaker, on capital expenditure, the segment of the budget that goes to building, improving and maintaining the country's infrastructure, the capital budget has been cut from an approved $38 billion down to $33 billion. That's a $4.7 billion reduction. But I here acknowledge the fact that an accounting measure has apparently changed in the budget, where certain types of recurrent maintenance are no longer referred to as capital, but rather as recurrent. But as I explained in the Standing Finance Committee, and I don't think the Minister was there, of Finance was there at the time, but in the case of the Ministry of Education, where we saw an amount for capital A was there in the previous budget, an amount for recurrent, both for maintenance in schools. And we are told that capital A has now been collapsed into the recurrent side. But the problem is that in this budget, Minister, I have not seen the incremental increase on the recurrent side that would make up for what has been lost is no longer in capital A. Right? Well, capital B is not maintenance, sir. With all due respect, capital B is to build new schools. It is new capital works, IDB funded, this and that. We're talking about sanitation, fixing up the schools, cleaning up the place, painting it up, not the leaking roofs. That's not capital B. So don't bring that to me. The budget cut, Minister. The budget cut. I'm trying to help you. The budget cut. Interestingly, though, in the BOJ annual report 2013 on page 47, it gives us an explanation for the lower than budgeted capital expenditure outturn in 2013. The Bank of Jamaica's report said that budgeted capital expenditure outturn primarily reflected slower than anticipated execution of capital projects. Capital projects, not a problem. Minister of Education has mentioned capital projects. And he knows too the delays that we have had in new schools being constructed, and sometimes the unnecessary delays in this. I think something, quite frankly, I was there, something has to be done about this thing. We programmed capital B to be spent under this heading IDB, World Bank, OPEC fund, Kuwaiti fund, and sometimes we put it in there and we seem to already know before we put it in there that it won't be spent. And then it appears as a major cut by the end of the year. Mr. Speaker, in agriculture, on the expenditure side, I just mentioned education. While we celebrate recent growth trends in agriculture, and I got a kind letter from the Minister who apologized for his absence, and I'm grateful for that letter. While we celebrate recent growth trends in agriculture, don't forget, oh yes, it's happening there, oh yes, we're planting real growth, oh yes, we're planting lots of Irish potato, plenty Irish potato, some of the most beautiful sweet peppers, Prime Minister. I'm going to carry some for you. Yes, some of these nice sweet peppers, Mr. Speaker. Bright and yellow, nice and green. There are even some orange color one too. And thank God the rain is falling now, so they're coming up nice and plump and they're gaining weight and they're looking pretty. And they taste even better. So we have to give God thanks for whatever growth we are seeing in agriculture now. But it's one thing for the Minister to pick the last quarter of growth and say that was 13% and then annualize it and say annualize, this will look good. True. But the economic and social hold the applause, because the economic and social survey says that real value added for agriculture, forestry and fishing industry declined by 0.5% in 2013, reflecting contraction in 3 to 5 sub-industries. I mean, we want to see growth, but for now, we have a little ways to go. Okay? Mr. Speaker, I also have concerns about the implementation of a portion of the housing development in Springfield in Clarendon under the socio-economic development of sugar-dependent areas. Specifically, infrastructure work, which includes road, water, electricity for 88 housing units, which was supposed to cost $166 million in Springfield, Clarendon, while being only 60% complete, has already racked up a variation, an overrun of $50 million. This requires explanation. In addition, the contract for the actual construction of the houses, which was recently cancelled from one main contractor and awarded to a second contractor, who is reportedly now paying laborers $1,600 per day, when the approved master builder's rate for compensation of that work is $2,068 per day. Incidentally, the proper rate is being paid by the infrastructure contractor, but is not being paid by the housing developer. Mr. Speaker, not only are the workers being underpaid in that very poor, Prime Minister, very poor area of southwest Clarendon, but they are being paid late, reportedly due to slow payment from the government. I'm asking the Minister to investigate that case. Mr. Speaker, in tourism, the other pillar of growth that we speak about along with agriculture, on which the government is relying, growth has slowed down. After healthy growth in 2007 to 2011, the percentage of growth in real value added for hotels and restaurants is in decline again, and stopover arrivals that grew by 120,000 visitors between 2009 and 2011 has now fallen to a mere 20,000 people between 2011 and 2012. Tourism is a very important industry for us, and we must not fool with it, because give credit to the former tourism minister. He grew the industry by 3% per year during the worst global economic crisis we have seen in 8 years. Mr. Speaker, let me turn now to revenue. The minister has announced the need for additional revenue. The minister, as a matter of fact, let me drink a little water on this one, this revenue one here. Mr. Speaker, the minister has announced the need for additional revenue measures in order to fill a financing gap of some $6.685 billion. I submit to you, Mr. Speaker, had the government kept the exchange rate stable, we would not have had to have additional tax measures. In fact, you can see where there is an additional $23 billion, as I said, for interest payments, most of it which is as a result of exchange rate movement. This could have easily gone to increasing capital expenditure, reducing arrears, and not require any tax measures at all. So then I ask, are we on the right path in all of its aspects? Is this current economic program of the IMF agreement the right one for Jamaica? Is there another economic program that the government could have crafted? Are we headed to the promised land, as the Honourable Minister promised in his budget presentation? So the essential point to be made, Mr. Speaker, and I'm quoting from the Minister now, the essential point to be made is that in order to reach that promised land of sustained economic growth, we have to enter through the gates of fiscal consolidation. Sound good, boy. Which will lead to low interest rates and over time generate more investment and more revenue. All of these form part of the current economic program of the IMF agreement. Mr. Speaker, we are not seeing low interest rates. Treasury bill yields have trended up. We are not seeing more tax revenues. Most of last fiscal year, tax revenues were running behind projections. The government got to the primary surplus figure in 13-14 because Minister Paulwell had the telecoms companies prepay their license fees that were not due for 2 years. Yes, Minister. All of this forms part of the current economic program of the IMF agreement, but is not leading to the promised land. I want this House to note that shortfall in tax revenues were across the board. Special consumption tax on imports, customs duty, PAYE, GCT on imports, companies' corporate taxes, stamp duties, and transfer tax of significance are the reasons the government gave for the shortfall. Significantly lower than budgeted collections for administrative compliance activities, faster than program decline in imports, reduced employment in some sectors of the economy. Hear this now, Mr. Speaker. Lower than programmed inflation. You're programming high inflation so you can earn more money? What is this? Underperformance of some of the new measures implemented in March and April, some of which I warned the minister about. And among them he has had to reverse himself. And I'm going to advise him to reverse himself even further today. Mr. Speaker, let me turn to the tax package. Mr. Speaker, once again, we are witnessing deception rather than straight talk. You may recall, Mr. Speaker, the front page reports, January 8th, with the headline, Mr. Speaker, the headline shouted, it frightened me today, big relief, no new taxes, says Phillips, reform, cutting debt on main agenda. Yes, that was it, big relief. The PNP political machinery went into high gear via Facebook on the same day and reported, quote, Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Peter Phillips, has asserted that he harbors no intention of imposing new taxes on Jamaicans in 2014. Number, sign, no new taxes, the Facebook report said.
Read my lips.
Read my lips. Mr. Speaker, the minister, in introducing the tax package, was so smooth. He was so smooth that it appeared that honey was flowing from his lips. Mr. Speaker, you're a countryman. Remember that I said, mine hands catch up your mouth. And without any reference whatsoever to his earlier reported commitment to no new taxes, no reference, no little apology, no little contriteness, no little piousness. All right, no little sincerity. Is that better? All right, no little sincerity. Just glibly announced, never butter eyelid. Just glibly announced a tax package of $6.685 billion. And in fact, shortly after the announcement, he reminded us of the holy season as a time for renewal and resurrection. But, Mr. Speaker, I was wondering, he ought to also have reminded us that Easter is a time that we must remember a thing called betrayal. Yes, there was betrayal in the story. How many times did the cock crow again? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I turn briefly to the tax on alcohol. The proposed tax on alcohol, which moves the special consumption tax on alcoholic beverages from $700 per liter of alcohol to $1,120 per liter of alcohol for the tourism sector, and specifically for white overproof rum, the rate would be moved from $960 per liter of pure alcohol to $1,120 per liter of pure alcohol. The net effect of this decision will militate against the competitiveness of the tourism industry, Minister, which will be the very hard hit from these additional taxes. I don't know how much analysis has been done. I don't know how much analysis has been presented to you. What I do know is that this is one of the taxes that, when I was minister, it was presented to me, and I sat down very carefully and listened very carefully to the analysis, because figures don't lie, and the world, the real world in which we are operating, is a real world where there are consequences to the decisions that we take. We must bear in mind that the tourism industry, hotel trade in Jamaica, as it is with so many destinations, is highly competitive. And this sharp increase in the cost of alcoholic beverages to the trade will drive a further blow to the industry's ability to be competitive. Remember what I said a while ago? We're bragging about 2 million arrivals. Is that it? 2 million arrivals? Jamaica needs to start talking about 4 million arrivals, about 2 million arrivals. We need to double that to 4 million arrivals. But we're not going to go to that promised land if we are going to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. The tourism minister seated behind you, he knows. I know that from the time you announced this tax last Thursday. I know that you have already been advised, Minister of Tourism, about the dire consequences that the industry will face with this decision. One company alone will see a crushing United States $2 million hit on its ability to remain competitive. This is serious. This is serious. In terms of white rum sales, it's another side of the business now. White rum sales. In 2010, as minister, while alcoholic taxation was amended from an ad valorem rate of 30% to a specific rate per liter of pure alcohol of $960, I deliberately, Mr. Speaker, exempted white rum from this regime in order to protect the local white rum industry. Our white rum industry is legendary. And the vertical integration in it, the vertical integration of the industry down to the small man working in the cane field. There's thousands of people who rely on the sugar industry and the rum industry is very important for the economy. And so I exempted white rum. This government in 2012 amended the regime to provide for overproof white rum to be taxed at $960 per liter of pure alcohol. They moved it up. Mr. Speaker, this move has led to the reduction of sales of white rum. This move in 2012 led to a 230 to 260% increase in the tax intake to government on white rum and virtually doubled the price of a drink of rum. Now, at one company, and I state the company because the entrepreneur didn't mind if I called the name of the company, Worthy Park Estates rum bar white rum sales have been cut by 50%. 50%. And 50 employees have lost their jobs since the imposition of that tax on white rum that was imposed. This new tax now is adding on to that. So 50% of the sales of that particular product at that particular company has already gone. 50 people lost their jobs, but the minister come and slap another tax on it now. This new tax will further militate against the local white rum industry, of which there are 7 different brands, and will open the doors for greater competition from imported liquor produced in foreign lands, using foreign wheat, foreign corn, foreign potatoes, using foreign labor for products such as vodka, gin and whiskey that will now compete in price against all white rum. It's going to be cheaper to buy a drink of vodka now than to drink a Jamaican white rum. So when you drink the vodka under this new taxation regime, minister might get a little more money in taxes, but more people going to be unemployed out there. More people are unemployed. And it is the suppliers of corn and wheat and potato in foreign lands. They are going to benefit from the little pittance that will be going to buy more vodka now than to buy more rum. Mr. Speaker, this decision needs to be reviewed, both in relation to the tourism sector, the impact on it, and in relation to the protection of local industry. It cannot be that we are on such a reckless path to collect taxes that we would endanger such an industry that has such a critical economic importance to this country. It cannot be. This decision needs to be reviewed because it relates to the protection of our local industry, local jobs, local production of sugarcane produced by many small farmers too. Where the park deals with a lot of small farmers. That member of parliament who is chatting and won't even listen, he has small farmers in North Clarendon who supply Worthy Park. And when the largest suppliers of small farmers to Worthy Park estates, but this is wiping out their industry. So when they lose a job in your constituency, see what you tell the Minister of Finance then, running up your mouth. Serious business. Mr. Speaker, it's not true. It's not true. The head of Worthy Park Estates told me this himself. Mr. Peter McConnell has said that 50 people have lost their jobs already because of this ruinous decision that has been taken by the government. I'm not talking any further to you. Listen to me.
What are you doing? Reading my mind?
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. The minister's decision to impose a special tax on motor vehicles in 2012-13 was ill-advised, and he has now realized that the consequences has been lost revenue. And I take note of his decision to reverse the decision by removing the 10% largely that he had increased motor vehicles by. Now, Mr. Speaker, I turn to the issue of the tax on withdrawal of money from financial institutions. We come, Mr. Speaker, to that issue, and we have to state first of all that in addition to the bank charges that now exist, there is a general perception that the minister has joined the banks in raiding the depositors. Raiding the depositors. And there's a trail to this. You know, the printer's devil says, the typist put, I want to look at the pathological trail, but I saw a pathological trial. But you're not on trial, Minister, because I know that good sense is going to prevail on this issue. What did we see on this pathological trail? You pass a law restricting cash transactions. Your colleague Minister of National Security. Pass a law restricting cash transactions. You establish a payment system for public sector workers that require everyone to have an account at a financial institution. Everybody who never used to have an account, then better go learn to open an account and bring out your ID and sign up your paper and have your account. Otherwise you can't get your transfer, your money you pay can't come by electronic transfer. And you have to have your account so that when you go to your ATM machine, you can take out your money. Of course, sorry, sidebar, you know, usually when you go into the ATM machine, the Minister of National Security would warn you, take a look around your surroundings before you go into the machine room. But little do we know that now you look around, you don't see anybody. You go into the machine room and the Minister of Finance waiting for you in there. So you establish a payment system that forces everybody to collect the pay at the bank or some other institution. You even now have a parliamentary committee chaired by the experienced former minister, the man who used to publish bank charges, make them public. He's now the chairman of the parliamentary committee reviewing bank charges. But alas, the minister has not allowed the committee to even report the findings of the committee on bank charges before he has come with the tax acts to hijack depositors with this new tax. Mr. Speaker, there's no question in my mind that it's going to discourage formal savings. I know the government is trying to push that, trying to encourage formal savings. This will discourage it, Prime Minister. It will send dollars under the mattress again and elsewhere. It is, in my view, inappropriate to impose this tax when you are trying to encourage the use of the formal banking system. But beyond that, let us look a little more carefully. Let's really be objective. After paying 33.33% of income in payroll tax, I hear a lot of people talking about 25%. It's not 25%. It's 33.33% because it's income tax, it's NHD, it's NIS, it's education tax. Taxes and deductions. Taxes and deductions. Taxes and deductions. Not anymore. All the savings gone. $11.4 billion a year. After the 33.33% of income tax and the payroll deductions, Jamaicans now have to pay GCT, Mr. Speaker, on purchases, pay GCT on electricity, pay the bank a fee to collect the money, pay GCT on telephone calls, pay tax on fuel, pay property taxes, pay motor vehicle fitness and insurance. If you do property transfers, you pay stamp duty and transfer tax, pay on interest earned in savings account, money done. And of what precious little that remains to purchase food at higher prices due to devaluation and inflation. Instead of restraining financial institutions with these charges, the minister has come with a tax of his own to tax withdrawals. Shame. Wicked. Shame. Will the financial institutions now charge an administrative cess, Mr. Minister? Have you, in your due diligence before introducing this tax, did you have a discussion with the financial institutions to find out whether they are going to carry out the task of collecting $2.25 billion on your behalf from individual workers and customers across this land and give you that money without charging somebody for it?
But they don't touch mine.
Who is the bank going to charge for it? So you draw the tax And you ask the bank to do it, and guess what? The bank will turn around and joke you with another administrative fee again. Because it requires additional persons, additional computer technology, programs to deduct these taxes and pass them on to government. What will those additional charges be? On whose backs will those charges be placed? Is it the consumer again? Of course it is the consumer. This provides yet another opportunity for the financial institutions to further enhance their income by charging this administrative fee. You know, Mr. Speaker, just as a little sidebar, would you believe, Mr. Speaker, that in an examination of the financial statements of the two major commercial banks, we note that for every $1 collected by the banks as fees and commission, only 20 to 30 cents out of the dollar go to cover the actual cost of providing the service. Yes? Let me repeat that. Check the balance sheet. They are publicly listed companies. Check the reports. For every dollar collected by the banks as fees and commissions, only 20 to 30 cents out of the dollar go to cover the actual cost of providing the service. The other 70 to 80 cents is profit for this line of business, no doubt to either subsidize other areas of their operations or just go into the raw profit line. Mr. Speaker, in addition, this tax will contribute to inflation. Don't be naive. And Mr. Speaker, I don't want anybody to come talk about it's a small amount of money. It's just a little point this and point that. It is the principle, and it also adds up. Because don't be naive to believe that business of every type, many of whom transfer funds in accounts in different financial institutions. We have noticed where you have said that if you're transferring an account from one within the branch, from one account to the next, no charge. What about a business that operates in more than one bank? What about a business that has the credit card collected through one bank, and he has to transfer from the credit card account over to the other bank from which he does other business? He has to pay a withdrawal charge for that. Yes. Who's going to pay that? You think that the businessman will absorb that cost? It's going to be passed on. It's passed on. When a lawyer manages clients' accounts and he has to pay fees on that, it's going to be passed on all the time. They will, nobody, no lawyer, no businessman, nobody will take this extra cost sitting down. They're going to pass on the cost. Mr. Speaker, I call today on the Minister of Finance to find $2.25 billion of fat and inefficiency in the bloated bureaucracy and leave people's hard-earned money alone. In fact, some people are always saying, if you criticize, you must always tell us how we're going to get the money. The Minister of Finance, he disposes. He has the experts. He can do the analysis. But I will just give the Minister an idea, Mr. Speaker, of some areas that he could cut. The government should seek to identify areas of expenditure that can be tightened up. These include foreign travel and smaller delegations on these visits. A smaller budget at the GIS with the advent of public broadcasting and live parliamentary coverage. This should no longer require large sums. Cut down on the army of consultants in ministries, departments and agencies. There's a lot of fat there. Equally, the program of developing competence in tax compliance has to be driven more aggressively. as there continues to be high levels of tax avoidance and tax evasion in this country. We know it. We know it. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, just in passing, just curious, why are we expending funds in this budget destroying marijuana, otherwise known as ganja fields, when Colorado and Canada want us to export it to them? Why? Why? Money is in the budget for the eradication of ganja. Cut it out. Chop down the tree, them one by one. Chop them up fine, fine.
Fine, fine, fine.
No, no. No, no. I'm not supporting the hand middle business, Prime Minister. But if an export market is there and we need to earn foreign exchange, send it go sell them and collect the money. Mr. Speaker, I can advise this Honourable House that when I was Minister of Finance, I can advise this Honourable House that when I was Minister of Finance, this tax was brought to me and I rejected it outright. In the circumstances, Minister, when you come to close this budget debate, we are demanding that you withdraw this tax. Minister, this dog just won't hunt. It is cruel, it is iniquitous, and this tax must go.
Must withdraw it.
Mr. Speaker, the state of public bodies has been a major plank of my presentations for some time. And there are always issues related to public expenditure. The most serious one sometimes has been public bodies, the debt losses, and the unplanned absorption by central government. Public bodies have created more challenges to the budgetary process than other activities, including natural disasters. Historically, the central government has had to absorb the losses and debt of some of the public bodies, resulting in higher debt to GDP ratios and unplanned expenditure. We remember well here Jamaica. We remember well the Sugar Company of Jamaica when I was Minister of Finance. But Mr. Speaker, on the horizon, we have more problems coming up with public sector bodies. The National Water Commission is projected to make a loss of $3.5 billion for this fiscal year. Happily, it's trending down from $6 billion last year. The reduction in loss is projected on increased revenue, however, of $3.5 billion. So the question to be asked is, has the NWC requested an increase from the OUR? And if so, what is that level of increase from the OUR? Does that level of increase approximate the expected $3.5 billion of additional revenue? But what concerns me most is the debt of the Commission and its implications for the budgetary process. Long-term liabilities, Mr. Speaker, $33 billion. Pension liabilities of $19 billion. And in last year alone, pension liabilities increased by $2 billion. And there are trade payables at the National Water Commission of $6.2 billion, Mr. Speaker. The JUTC, contrary to the perception created by the many grand public relations statements made by the JUTC recently, it is projected to make a loss of $3.3 billion this year. Last year the loss was $2.8 billion. The main problem is that their cost, Mr. Speaker, is increasing much faster than their revenue. Cost is increasing much faster than revenue. Yet the government is seeking to take over many of the existing private operators' operations. Last year, the government injected $6.5 billion into JUTC. And this year's projection of $1.1 billion is sufficient to cover operating losses of $3.3 billion and trade payables of $7.2 billion. So it's not just central government racking up their ears. NWC and JUTC alone owe in trade payables $6.2 billion and $7 billion respectively, Mr. Speaker. Just those two companies, $7.2 billion. That's $13.4 billion just for those two companies for trade payables. Add that to the $50 billion that central government owes. People are suffering out there for their money. NROC. Some years ago I called her the new debt queen. More like a debt king now. The projected loss is $7.8 billion this year alone, which includes projected foreign exchange losses. Listen, Mr. Speaker, because notice throughout, it's running like a virus throughout this budget. A constant reference to foreign exchange losses, a constant impediment of exchange rate changes that is causing a disequilibrium in the economy. It's affecting interest charges. Now it is affecting public bodies, Madam Speaker. Imagine this. Madam Prime Minister, foreign exchange losses of $2.5 billion and finance costs of $4.2 billion. Not done yet. The long-term liability of this entity is a massive $71.2 billion. That is the long-term liability of NROC. And Mr. Speaker, let the public and the Parliament be clear and understand this. And the Minister of Transport and Works, I know why he's happy about why I went to China a little bit before he became Minister. I know why he's happy. Because let it be clear on NROC. Let it be clear on NROC that this $71.2 billion does not relate in any way to the North-South Highway, which is being funded entirely by the Chinese through debt and equity. And I remember when I met with the Minister of Finance in China, I told him we just can't afford to borrow the money. And we can't afford to guarantee the loan either. And that is the basis on which we were able to negotiate and get them to agree to do the North-South Highway without any monetary commitment from the government of Jamaica at all. So let us understand, it's all right, circumstances alter cases. It's all right. Come on, country, me tell you. But let's understand that expansion, this $71 billion is Highway 2000. Highway 2000. But to compound matters, Madam Prime Minister, and I appreciate your indulgence, over a 3-year period, NROC has suffered a foreign exchange loss of $10 billion. What? All because of an exchange rate that is out of control. 3 years, $10 billion, racking up the debt. I am going to have a forensic examination detailing every striking dollar that we're losing from this reckless policy of devaluation that's taking place. The privatization of the Port Authority continues at a very slow pace. And this is of concern, and the government must be concerned, because we can't put all our eggs, Madam Prime Minister, into the basket of Goat Island. If and when Goat Island comes, everybody will be happy, or some alternative to Goat Island, whatever is the final decision. Whatever comes, whenever it comes, everybody will be happy. But until such time, we have a thing called Port Bustamante. There are lanes there that need to be dredged. We need to open those lanes and get them ready for those big liners that are going to come through the Panama Canal. If we don't hurry up and do it, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, if we don't hurry up and do it, well, Miami is doing it, Trinidad is doing it, Dominican Republic is doing it, Cuba is doing it. Listen, we better get our act together. We have to get our act together. And my mother would say, hold on to what you have first until you get what you want. So make we find a way to deal with the divestment of the Kingston Container Terminal. Let's find a way, get the money, maybe, even if you have to get some out of the MIDP program. Let us not wait on a divestment to dredge the harbor. The dredging of the harbor is primarily a duty and a responsibility of the government of Jamaica if we want to be serious about transshipment when the Panama Canal opens. But, Mr. Speaker, the Port Authority in the meantime has racked up a foreign exchange loss of $9.5 billion. The company presently has debt of over $38 billion. Understand, between NROC and the Port Authority of Jamaica, that do a lot of business in foreign exchange, it's almost $20 billion of losses they have racked up as a result of the ruinous slipping exchange rate. Unsustainable. It is madness. No prescription from Washington can have something like this continue on us. Can't. This is something, Madam Prime Minister, we're going to have some consensus around stability in this economy. It's not going to come from Washington. It's not going to come from the head of the European Union. It ain't going to come from the IDB. It's not coming from the World Bank. It's going to come from us right here in Jamaica. Nobody can stabilize the dollar for us. We in Jamaica have to stabilize the dollar. Here, here. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the special drawdown of funds of $45.6 billion over 4 years from the National Housing Trust, I have received documents from the Ministry, and I quote one section. It says, having regard to the maturity profile of its investment portfolio and the need to maintain minimum cash balances, it will be necessary to sell $6 billion of its joint finance portfolio in 2014 and another $6 billion by 2016. Now, Mr. Speaker, this observation has been made to ensure that the NHT maintains healthy cash balances in view of the significant payouts being made. However, I'm advised that the mortgage finance institutions that have the joint finance portfolio are resisting taking over these mortgages as they consider them to be high risk. My question, therefore, is, if this is so, what is the alternative plan that the Housing Trust will have to ensure the maintenance of the appropriate level of cash in the system so that its core programs will not be affected after the substantial payout of $11 billion to the government each year? I take note that while the Housing Trust refers loosely to annual housing expenditure of $22 billion, this expenditure, unlike several years ago in the previous administration, is now heavily weighted in the provision of funds for mortgages in the open market. Last year, some $19.6 billion was used for this purpose, with less emphasis on the Housing Trust directly building more and less expensive and more affordable housing units. For example, the houses at Luana, $2.8 million. Houses at Portmore, $3 million. Equally, with nothing much happening at the Housing Agency of Jamaica, which was a vibrant partner with the Housing Trust in building out low-cost housing solutions, this objective is further compromised. Madam Prime Minister, this needs to be looked into. It needs to be looked into. The Housing Trust needs to have a dynamic portfolio where they involve the private sector, of course, partnerships, public-private partnerships, but some low-income houses, lower-income houses, for contributors still, need to be built. More of them need to be built by the Housing Trust itself, because they have a way of providing economies of scale to keep the cost down in building those houses. And basically what the Housing Trust does too is to pass on or forego a lot of the profit and even subsidize the housing for people of very modest and limited means. That needs to be looked at. Finally, especially in view of the reduction of low-cost housing units being built by the Trust and the provision of mortgages for the acquisition of houses in the open market, I believe it is time now for the Housing Trust to lift the ceiling on the amount of money loaned to depositors to purchase their homes. The present limit of $4.5 million, I believe, in the circumstances, should be lifted to at least $6 million, Prime Minister, which would also make $12 million available for joint purchase mortgages. It will also assist in stimulating the economy in terms of house construction. On the macroeconomic program, Mr. Speaker, within the context of that macroeconomic framework and the extended fund facility program with the IMF, and in that context I want to spend just a little time on discussion of the exchange rate, on which the Minister has invited a debate, the national debate, which requires a debate, and to conclude with what I consider to be a critical pulse points to drive rapid economic growth in Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, it was the JLP that started the reforms that are now much talked about. We established, yes, you know that, look in the files of the ministry, you're up there. We established and entrenched the principles of fiscal responsibility in government as a platform for private sector-led growth and development. We passed fiscal responsibility framework law as an amendment to the Financial Administration and Audit Act. We introduced the concept of fiscal rules legislation, which has now been passed, and we introduced major green papers and commenced parliamentary consultations on tax, pension, and public sector reform. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, in this context, many of the pieces of legislation to which the Minister has made reference were conceived and were in various stages of development while I was Minister of Finance. I don't think the Honourable Minister will deny that. Ironically, while the IMF reviews broke down due to alleged slow implementation of the reform agenda, the IMF has given this government a blight by allowing tax reform at a pretty slow pace and no reform whatsoever in public sector and pension reform until 2016. Boy, donkey said the world on level. IMF wasn't willing to give me that blight. But I'm giving you that blight. Mr. Speaker, don't make me say anything, you know. Let it be clear. We had no broken relationships with the multilateral. That is why, Mr. Speaker, in November of 2011, Jamaica borrowed $330 million from the IDB and the World Bank with the blessings of the IMF. The IMF had to sit at the boardroom table. And you know how it works. They work together. So when the IDB is approving a loan, there's a representative from the IMF at the boardroom. Same thing with the World Bank. And when they approved those loans, they approved it with the knowledge and consent of the International Monetary Fund. So let's cut out the foolishness about broken down relationships and what didn't happen and all that. So, but let's understand. Let me make my position very clear, because I see where even newspapers trying to write my speech for me and all that sort of thing. Right? Right? Some of them are on a permanent campaign, but they're trying to write my speech for me. Okay? Okay, no, trying to write my speech for me. Right? And let me say this. While I was very explicit about this, while we are in general support of the extended fund facility program with the IMF, we are not in support of the reckless and ruinous path of devaluation, which has the potential to do damage to the economy that is reminiscent of the FinTech crisis in this country. Not going to support it. So they can run up them out. That's our position. And I'm now going to deal specifically with exchange rate, debt, and growth before I wrap up this presentation. Mr. Speaker, on the matter of the exchange rate, I listened carefully to the Minister. His belief is that the adjustments that have been made to the Jamaican dollar will allow what we produce to be more competitive in the external markets, and at the same time allow us to develop what we can produce in Jamaica. Therefore, having a competitive exchange rate is one of the keys to economic expansion and growth in the jobs as we see it. What you said, Minister, would be genuine if you could say, Mr. Speaker, what you said there, Minister, would be genuine if you can say what the competitive exchange rate is. We have gone from $86.60 to almost $110 now, 27% depreciation, and we don't have the evidence yet that what we produce is more competitive in the external market. Exports, Mr. Speaker, are down. Minister, in 2013 over 2012, by a lot. Exports are down by 10%. Or United States, $165 million, Mr. Speaker. That's how much exports are down since we're on this devaluation spiral. During 2010-2011, when the JLP administration kept the currency stable, exports, Mr. Speaker, went up by 21.6%. Between 2010 and 2011. Minister, whoever it is, yes it is, they are leading you astray, because to make matters worse, it is the non-traditional exports that have cratered, dropping by 17.4%, or $147.2 million United States dollars. So don't tell me this is not bauxite and alumina, this is non-traditional exports that has dropped so precipitously. So, Mr. Speaker, not only will the Minister not tell us what is a competitive rate, he wouldn't even give a target of exports to GDP that Jamaica can reach, and that his government is prepared to stand by. So far, the experience is not bearing you out. Let's get back to a stable foreign exchange rate. For the budget's sake, for the manufacturer's sake, for the poor consumer's sake, that see it in their food and electricity bill every month, for the transportation sector. a continuously devalued currency is a sure way to pauperism, not the promised land. During the administration of the PNP, in 18 years prior to 07, the dollar moved from $5.77 to $69.06 by 2007, a 1,097% depreciation. Let us not repeat that experience. Jamaica has too much foreign currency debt in the debt portfolio, some 58.7%. Mr. Speaker, let me be very blunt with you. Let me be very blunt with you. In the 18 years of the PNP government prior to 2007, the annual average rate of depreciation of the exchange rate was 61%. 61%. Poverty dropped. Bang belly economy you are running. You are running a bang belly economy. Mr. Speaker, the exchange rate under his watch declined 61% per year. Average. Now we are at 27%. If you continue on this ruinous path, we're heading for the 61% average. That's where we are headed, Minister. And we are very, very concerned about it. By devaluing constantly, you're pushing the interest expense in the budget back into the stratosphere. There are many arguments in favor, Minister, of a fixed exchange rate policy, as there are for a floating exchange rate or carefully managed floating exchange rate. Even among researchers at the multilateral institutions, there are differing views though. One recent paper by Inderjit Rupra of the Country Department Caribbean Group of the IDB issued a policy paper in October of 2013. We're not talking about any long-time paper, just written a few months ago. In it, Mr. Rupra discussed the traditional argument that favors devaluation, but issued the following caution for Caribbean countries like Jamaica that are considered to be small, open economies that have a high import dependency. I quote now from Mr. Rupra, and it is a good science quote because it's a very serious subject. It is argued that expenditure cannot be switched from tradable goods to non-tradable goods in countries such as those in the Caribbean. There is no switching effect of a devaluation, either in expenditure or production. Therefore, a real exchange rate evaluation only depresses real income. Worse, a devaluation could result in stagflation, reduced economic growth and increased inflation. That's what stagflation is. There's a high pass-through effect. Example, the effect of a nominal devaluation on domestic inflation. The pass-through effect is higher in the instance where the portion of imported goods in the consumer price index and imported inputs is greater and the monetary policy is more accommodative. He goes on. In addition, an unexpected external devaluation adversely affects a balance sheet. And I want you to listen to this carefully because we're coming back to it. Balance sheet. If debts are denominated in dollars while firms' revenue is in local currency, this deterioration has two consequences. It limits the firm's ability to borrow, and borrowing becomes more expensive as the risk premium increases. Thus, the balance sheet effect has a dampening impact on economic growth. Coming back to that because our balance sheets are getting more and more US oriented. He concludes, another downside of an external devaluation is that if an external devaluation is perceived as a sign of economic weakness, the credit worthiness of the country might be jeopardized. You know about that because you want to go to the capital market this year and you don't know if you can go yet. Thus, devaluation might reduce investor confidence and hence the country's ability both to secure foreign investment and to roll over public debt without worsening terms. Now, sound a little technical, but it's serious stuff. Very, very serious and convincing stuff. And the burden of his presentation, Minister, was that the postulation and the thesis around which he put this paper together is the reference to the small, open economies of the Caribbean. And the argument is that the orthodox theory that devaluation will lead to foreign exchange earnings and runaway exports and runaway production. How come that not happening to Jamaica from the time of the 1970s when we devaluing the dollar? Let us be clear on something. The only two periods since the 1970s, Mr. Speaker, that we have had a stable period of 6% economic rates of growth was in the period 1986 to 1990. That was one period. Of course, in the period in the 60s, the exchange was stable too. But we stabilized it for 3 years at $5.50 to 1, and the economy grew by 6% per year again. It has not happened since that. Jamaica has never really had a fixed exchange rate system in its purest form. But we have had a few periods of stability in the exchange rate, as I mentioned. Since that time, we have seen the exchange rate slip from when we were stronger than the US dollar. Lots of young people in this chamber don't even know that we had a dollar that was stronger than the United States dollar in 1969, 1970, 1971, 1972. Yes, we had a stable exchange rate even in a few years of the PNP administration of the 1970s in the early part. But then we know the history, and I must say to you that when we stabilized the exchange rate in the 1980s, I must say this to you, Mr. Speaker, because a little history, when you reach, I guess, my age and involvement, you can remember a little history. And I remember when I was in Washington. The Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Mr. Siaga, was in Washington. And I was there because I was working with the investment promotion company, JNIP, the Jampro company. And at that time there was disagreement. Mr. Speaker, at that time there was disagreement between the IMF and the then Minister of Finance. They didn't want to manage float. Mr. Siaga insisted on the auction system, which was a managed float. It worked for 3 years, and the economy grew by 6% per year between 1986 and 1990. We must not forget that.
That's right.
Then followed a period of sharp declines in the value of the currency, as I've mentioned before. And in the 4 years of our administration, the exchange rate did decline from $69 to $86. It did. During the worst world crisis we have seen in 80 years, and it led to a severe contraction in revenue. But what happened after that? It was stabilized for almost 2 years, largely due to the implementation of a series of policies that worked together to build confidence, including a re-engagement with the multilaterals on an aggressive scale. We started to borrow money cheaper. That is one of the reasons why the interest cost, though rising now, would have been much worse if we were still in the international capital markets, borrowing money at 8, 9, 10, and 11%. Thank God we are now borrowing money. Every time you hear World Bank and IDB cut a check down here, it's coming down here at 2%. It might even be coming at less. So, that is something that I am proud that I broke the back of expensive money on the international capital market. But after, Mr. Speaker, let it be known where we left the NIR and where we left growth at 1.5%. And what followed was a failure to continue to generate the confidence that we had gained. The NIR fell to $800 million and negative growth returned for 5 consecutive quarters. Where are we today? What is the competitive rate of exchange for the Jamaican dollar today? Is it $110 or $120? As implied by the IMF. Others have even suggested $150. What is this? Madness. The answer is that the structural deformities in our economy at this time, combined with lack of confidence, militate against the possibility of achieving a stable economy and a stable exchange rate within an orthodox, free-floating exchange rate, Minister. We must call a halt to this madness of devaluation. It is leading us nowhere but to more and more despair. Research of the experience of devaluation in Jamaica shows that this overused strategy has failed miserably to stimulate imports, to contain growth in imports, and to significantly reduce balance of payment deficits. It is not any different at this time. A stable currency is an essential prerequisite for businesses to succeed within that stable macroeconomic environment. But, Mr. Speaker, there is more to come, because the IMF is quoted in the Greener, April 16, and it's coming from the Article 4 report from last year. We know what that is, where it's coming from. But it's reminding everybody that it is the view of the IMF that the Jamaican dollar is overvalued by between 8 and 22%. Noting, the article noted that the devaluation of 11% in the last fiscal year was, quote, at the low end of the estimate. You hear what I said? At the low end of the estimate. So in other words, the 22% is the high end. 11% is the low end. That means you have more room now to wreck the dollar some more. To tell you something. The clear inference to be drawn is that the further devaluation can be expected until the exchange rate reaches at least $120 to $1 US. What? The question is, if and when the exchange rate reaches $120, what magic, Mr. Speaker, in that figure would have made the Jamaican economy suddenly, if not miraculously, more competitive? What fundamental change would have occurred to guarantee no further devaluation and speed up runaway investment growth and job creation? Bear in mind, Mr. Speaker, that history will show that the periods of significant economic growth have always been characterized by a stable currency. You cannot achieve it without it. And I mentioned the stability of the 60s and in the 86 to 90 period. And while we accept that some progress has been made, the million-dollar question is, are we doing all the things that are necessary and sufficient to achieve game-changing and paradigm shifts in the economy to achieve meaningful and sustainable growth? Former Prime Minister Bruce Golding has asked the question in public fora. Yes, we agree with an IMF program, but we are going to have to go far and beyond the parameters of the Extended Fund Facility program if we are going to achieve real and genuine and lasting success. The answer to that question is no, we're not doing enough. And under the present dispensation, it will be anyone's guess where the exchange rate will end. God help all of us. The exchange rate, Minister, will be like the dog chasing its tail. And you know what happens with a dog chasing its tail. Now, Mr. Speaker, before I speak on debt, there's an issue. I don't want to call it dollarization because I don't want any mischief to be made. So I have deliberately coined an appropriate subhead called currency substitution. But Prime Minister, this is very important because I'm using now some relatively new, a sort of a new phenomena that is emerging in the financial system in Jamaica. And we better understand it. We better take sleep and mark death and understand where we are and understand why we need a stable exchange rate. A discussion of exchange rate cannot end without a discussion of currency substitution. This Honourable House needs to be aware that the Jamaican economy is silently on a path to currency substitution. Foreign assets at commercial banks are the highest in 6 years, having increased 33% to $153 billion, denominated, of course, in Jamaican dollars, from $115 billion in December 2011. The institutions that are licensed under the Financial Institutions Act, the securities dealers, showed the same pattern. Foreign assets moved up 42% at the end of December 2013, and when the JP left government in December 2011, has moved up 42%. That is not confidence in the Jamaican dollar. Put even aside confidence in the government, no, that's not confidence in our exchange arrangements, in our currency. Even the building societies, who are as local as you can get, saw their foreign assets jump 37% at the end of December 2013 compared with when the JP handed over the government in 11. That's not the confidence in the government. This is a march to currency substitution, and it must be examined very carefully. More and more landlords quote rents in US dollars. Our hotels have always priced their products in US dollars. Our monthly electric bill adjusts for the movement in the currency. Petrojam adjusts for the movements in the currency as well. Merchants adjust for the currency movements. Just this past Sunday, I read that more and more companies are choosing the US dollar as their functional currency. They can't take the uncertainty and the vagaries of the Jamaican dollar. Mr. Speaker, the lesson to be learned from this aggressive currency substitution is the rapidly declining confidence in our local currency, and this is spurred by the aimless devaluation that is taking us nowhere but to despair. Now I speak briefly on the issue of debt, and it will be brief. I'd like to underscore the significance of having accurate information on the debt ratio, particularly the debt to GDP ratio, as that is one of the major targets against which this government's performance is measured. Mr. Speaker, it muddies the waters and obfuscates the truth and the true state of the nation when the debt to GDP ratio is different depending on who says it, depending on which of the government's publications you read. Can we just settle on one consistent methodology so that when the minister speaks about the debt to GDP, his administration inherited and compares it against where the ratio was now, we know that he's comparing apples with apples, not apples with bananas. This debt so absorbs our energies that is a must that it is represented truthfully. Not sometimes this and sometimes that, depending on what political points the administration wants to make. Mr. Speaker, it pains me to have to say that the Honourable Minister is misleading the country. He said on Thursday that the government inherited a debt to GDP ratio of upwards, in his words, upwards of 146%. and that ratio had now declined to 139%. I carefully wrote it down, Mr. Speaker, because I had heard the minister with that before. And I knew that I never left a debt at 146%. I never left a debt at 147%. I never left a debt at 148%. I left the debt at 141.5%. The minister is misleading the country, because on both counts, the minister is wrong. The fact is, the debt to GDP ratio at the end of 2011-12, that's gone into March now, you know, was 141.5%. Not upwards of 146% as stated by the minister. And that same ratio now at the end of March 2014 is not 139% as mentioned by you, Minister, in which I asked you if Petrocarib funds were in it and you said yes. The true figure is 144.9%. Not my figures, your figures. In your books. That's where the information is to be found. Look in the debt management strategy and you will see it. Now, this is the measurement of debt under the extended fund facility of the IMF. Just so everybody understands, Mr. Speaker, there are two types of measurement of debt. One is the measurement by the IMF, which I believe is the most accurate measurement, because what the IMF does is that it includes not just central government debt, but net Petrocarib debt and external and domestic guaranteed debt. That is the higher figure presented by the EFF. The other common measurement of debt is the central government stock of debt. That's what most of us hear about every day, which stood at $1.662 trillion, or 131% of GDP at the end of March 2012. By the way, at the end of December 2011, it stood at 1.630. So they added another $30 billion by the time March came around in 2012. And which now stands at 1.946 trillion. $300 billion and counting has been increased, putting it at 131.9% of GDP at the end of March 2014. So, Mr. Speaker, we hear that the minister has reduced the debt since taking over from the previous government. On any measurement, whether under the extended fund facility or under the central government stock of debt, there has been no real progress. The central government stock of debt is up, not down, and the debt to GDP ratio, whether you use EFF or central government measure, is up, not down. On both cases, the debt as measured in a standard way was lower when I handed it over in December 2011. Enough of the propaganda that when you inherited this, you have now brought it down. Mr. Speaker, one thing is for sure. The persistent and unchecked devaluation of the Jamaican dollar is a major cause in the accumulation of the central government stock of debt. You know, you must ask questions a lot, because that's what a democracy is for. And that is, and we must be grateful that we have a democracy too. And that we have the honor, and that we respect the system, and we answer the question. Because I asked the government, Mr. Speaker, the following questions in relation to last year's budget. What percentage of the debt stock increase is due to devaluation? The answer, I read it word for word down. No amendment. The answer, The change in the debt stock amounted to $133.4 billion, an increase of 7.4% for the outturn for end March 2013. Of this, depreciation of the Jamaican dollar accounted, out of the 133 billion, you know, depreciation of the Jamaican dollar accounted for 108.5 billion Jamaican dollars, or 6% change to the total stock of debt. Depreciation of the Jamaican dollar accounted, Mr. Speaker, for 81.5% of the change in the debt stock during the fiscal year.
What?
I don't know how you're going to reconcile it.
Mr. Speaker, therein lies the direct cause of sharp increases in interest costs that taxpayers don't have to pay for as a result of the steep rise in the stock of debt. Due not in the main to more borrowing, and I'm not going to play the politics that you played when you were on this side. But because I'm going to be very blunt with you, you are all merciless in attacking me for increasing the debt without recognizing that the devaluation we faced because of the global economic crisis was a major reason in the increase in the debt. But you attacked me mercilessly. I won't return the favor, Minister. I won't return the favor.
You don't like your friend?
No, Mr. Speaker. Ironically, imagine, look at this contrast. Your debt caused an increase of $108 billion in 1 year. And guess what? The minister is going to have to borrow $110 billion, just $2 billion more in 1 year. If the dollar was stable last year, we'd only borrow $2 billion, Minister. $2 billion, not $110 billion. Because you would have not had the need to borrow $110 billion to cover this cost of this increase from devaluation. Well, you know, I'm done with it now. I'm done the argument. I'm done with it. Madam Prime Minister, take my foolish advice. You are the chairman of the cabinet. Take a read of this, and you will see footnotes put in here. You will see articles by IDB representatives, World Bank representatives, IMF representatives. There is a book which I will send to you, which I got when I was Minister of Finance in Washington, marked Caribbean Economies, and it was referring to exchange rate. I'm going to send it to you, Honorable Prime Minister, because it hurts me to think that you have some of the technocrats at the IMF who come and sit down and tell us that we must have an orthodox floating exchange rate system to keep our agreement going, when they have papers, studies being done at their institutions that are saying otherwise. Double standard. Double standard. And it's wicked, it's reckless, and it is mashing up poor people's lives in this country. Mr. Speaker, I turn briefly to the growth imperative. IMF alone can't grow the economy. EFF program alone can't grow the economy. That's why we must not mash up with tourism industry to suit them. Don't mash up with liquor white rum industry to suit them either. Okay? Now, real job creators are consumers whose rising wages and incomes generate jobs and growth. That is classic economic theory. You know that, Minister. If average people don't have decent wages, there can be no real recovery and no real growth. But, Mr. Speaker, hear this. If you think our country not in crisis, you're living somewhere else. Hear this. Over the past 2 years, real wages have declined 4.7% in 2013 and 4.8% in 2012. Real wages have declined. That means purchasing power gone down. That means people are getting poorer and poorer and poorer in this country. Here are some suggestions for growth. Stabilize the exchange rate. Ramp up education and training at all levels. Remake Jumper into a well-oiled machine. Fast track new and cheaper sources of energy for the economy. Engineer greater access to credit. Recapitalize and expand the Exim Bank of Jamaica. Reduce transfers, tax and stamp duty. Increase NHT lending ceiling. Fast track the divestment of the Kingston Container Terminal. I don't have to say more about the exchange rate. I've said enough on the exchange rate. But here is what I'll say in the final position. And I'm saying it because I respect the fact that we have engaged on this so important and so fundamental an issue. Because my goodness, I don't, listen, in our democracy, I could become the minister again. I don't want to inherit an economy that plunges down into $120, $130, $140, $150 exchange rate. Inheriting what? A wreck? Can't continue like this. Within the context of an IMF agreement in which 3 tests have been passed and a 4th test is likely to be passed, and $2 billion US. Listen to this. I want the minister to hear this, you know. $2 billion US in flows are guaranteed from the multilaterals. This is an ideal time to consider fixing the exchange rate for a period of time, after which the regime can then be morphed into a managed floating system. Jamaica just cannot take any more devaluation at this time. We are too high cost and import dependent. One manufacturer of sauces tells me at the arena, at the expo, 67% of everything he produces is import dependent. 67%. Of course we need to wean the economy off of imports, but it's going to take time. In Jamaica today we need to build consensus, Prime Minister, around many things. One of these is the need to settle down to a stable exchange rate while we work on the other structural impediments that can sap investor confidence. And give credit to the minister for what he is doing. The structural reforms that are being carried out are important. The laws that are being passed are important. But in the meantime, every day we hear the dollar gone again. More people are suffering more in Jamaica because of that decline. We love the poor. Why do I say ramp up education? Minister Gone left me. But you know my position. Early childhood education, Prime Minister. It is the passion of the former Minister of Education. But Prime Minister, there are 2,000 trained teachers in Jamaica today that are without jobs. We need to retrain them into early childhood technology and get them to go help teach our children in infant schools. We have to rescue our future. The only way to rescue our future is to rescue our little children. Prime Minister, you know the greatest thing we can do for our children. Give them a good education. Thank God for my father and my mother. They never had silver and gold. The house they raised us in is still there in Christiana. My niece lives in the house. We will never sell that house. We'll never sell the 5 acres of land. But they wanted to make sure that we all had a good education. My little 5-year-old, about to be 5-year-old Christiana, she's watching me at home on television right now. send her your love, Prime Minister, because you always send love for Christiana, right? But at 5 years old, she's already so alert and take after her mother. Take after her mother, right? And the things that she says, the things she comes out with, it is just an absolute joy and delight to see it happening. And I would like to see it happen to every child in this country. We have a duty to give every child a chance. And we need remedial programs. We must rescue our children at primary school. We must rescue them at high schools. We need reading and comprehension programs. Doctor, the Member of Parliament, the Minister of Transport and Works, has had for many years a very enlightened program of reading and comprehension in his constituency. I've started one in mine. I've started one in mine where we are working with our primary schools. We're trying to get at least one teacher trained in reading skills, getting whiteboard and smart sticks and all that sort of thing. We want to get into the system. It helps in the teaching process. No, man, we have some serious work to do. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to just say, former Prime Minister Edward Seaga said it, former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson said it. Values and attitudes was what Mr. Patterson said. Mr. Seaga said we need a curriculum of character education. Character education. It needs to be introduced among every cohort in the education system. We must be united in facing the urgent task of tackling the crisis of human underdevelopment in our country. We have to tackle it. Mr. Speaker, we have to remake JAMPO. JAMPO needs to become more aggressive. Work along with DBJ and Exim Bank. Get active again. Get really alive. Promote foreign and local investment. Get around the corners. Cut the red tape. Get the thing done along with the fast-track approvals process that the Leader of the Opposition and I and others have recommended. We need to fast-track energy solutions. My God, we've been talking about it for so long. 12 years? 12 years spanning you then, we then you. 12 years later, and we're still fooling around about alternative energy. The liquid natural gas project must be given national priority, Prime Minister, to ensure that the financing is put in place expeditiously. The government should help to target funding from the multilateral institutions as part of the drive to get the project on a fast track. Once it is satisfied that the technical capabilities of the winning bidders are in place, we have to arrange more access to low-cost credit for the productive sector. When you look at credit, the climb of credit in the productive activities is very, very mild. Almost negligible, flat. Credit to production. Credit for consumption is up. About $30 billion. Credit for consumption is up. But when you look at line items like manufacturing and other things like that, you see maybe a $5 billion blimp or $6 billion, not enough. We have to find a way, Minister, to engineer more credit into the productive sectors of the economy. Of interest, Claude Clark, a former Minister of Industry on your side, recently noted in an article that less than 10% of Jamaican firms that are less than 5 years old have actual and benchmark access to credit. Less than 5%. But in less than 10%. But in Trinidad and Tobago, 50% of Trinidadian firms that are less than 5 years old, they have access to credit. 10% for us, access to credit. 50% in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Clark went on that in Singapore and Barbados, their deposits and outstanding loans are 292% and 197% of their respective GDPs. Deposits and outstanding loans. The figure for Jamaica is 57%. Mr. Speaker, what are deposits and outstanding loans? These are active capital assets that are at work to build the muscle in the economy, to create jobs and to create economic growth. The 57% figure for Jamaica reveals once again the malnourished bank belly status of the Jamaican economy. Then, Mr. Speaker, let us recapitalize the Exim Bank. It is commendable what you have proposed in relation to the Student Loan Bureau. And I feel like I'm a co-daddy in that one. Because when I became minister, well, then I am the daddy then, be careful. But what I'm saying is that when I started as minister, there were 6,000 loans to students. It went to 14,000 by the time I left as Minister of Finance. So I am happy about what is planned for the Student Loan Bureau. But let us recapitalize the Exim Bank so that it can literally double or triple its portfolio in supporting the drive for exports, Minister. And then I want to say to you, Minister, you have reduced the taxes on motor vehicles. You're going to start collect more money now. If you want to collect even more money, take off back the 1% that you had put on transfer taxes and stamp duties. Remove that, you're going to collect more money. Because your own paper has said, your own document said, the projected yield of $2 billion from the 1 percentage point increase in the stamp duty and transfer tax did not materialize. If it don't materialize, just like the car one never materialized, take it off. Allow the money to come from volume transactions. That is the Chinaman principle. Right? I have already mentioned the suggestion of increasing the ceiling on the lending for housing loans. And I've already mentioned the fast track of the Kingston Container Terminal. So now, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, I can head swiftly to my conclusion. Mr. Speaker, in the context of the IMF agreement, if we are to achieve sustainable gains, we must take firm and aggressive steps to support the Extended Fund Facility Program. We have no time to lose. No more time. Can we stabilize the exchange rate and give our people a chance? Yes, we can. Can we together ramp up education and rescue our people from a crisis of human underdevelopment? Yes, we can. Can we start to promote investment with missionary zeal once again? Yes, of course, we can. Can we fast-track energy diversification after 12 years of talk? Yes, we can. Can we arrange greater access to funds in commercial banks and the Exim Bank? Yes, we can. Can we provide a stable environment that encourages investment and develop our people? Yes, we can. Can we change course by giving people opportunity to work our way out of poverty and lift our standards of living and our standards of conduct? Yes, we can. Mr. Speaker, may God guide us all as we continue on our journey. And may He inspire us with hope in our hearts and the firm belief that we can and we will overcome. May God bless you all, and may God bless Jamaica.
Take it home and study.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is not intended to do any further business this afternoon, so I move for the adjournment of the Parliament until tomorrow, the 23rd of April at 2 p.m.
The question is that the House to adjourn to tomorrow, the 23rd of April, 2 p.m. Those in favour? Those against? Ayes have it. House stands adjourned.
Following is brought to you in time allotted for government broadcasts.
Heralding the birth of the new nation. The new flag of Jamaica raised.
Jamaica's national flag was first raised on Independence Day, August